The space station Concordia Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was built for peace talks, with white walls and soft lights that made everyone feel calm. Today, those lights seemed too bright to High Counselor Vexthara of the Zenthari Empire. Vexthara stood at the main docking bay window watching a small human ship arrive. Her 6 arms crossed in worry. The humans were late, which was strange. Humans were never late for anything, especially not for fights. They bring only one ship, said her aide, Kefrin. Very small, maybe 12 crew members. Vexthara's purple skin darkened with confusion. The Zenthari had brought 3 warships and 200 soldiers. This was supposed to be a big argument about trade routes. The humans had been stealing Zenthari cargo ships for months. Everyone expected the humans to come ready for war. Strange, Vexthara muttered. Where are their battle fleets? The human ship was clean and white, with no weapons showing on the outside. It looked like a pleasure cruise ship, not a war vessel. The docking clamps locked into place with a soft hiss. General Korth of the Krillian military stomped over on his 4 legs. His thick armor made loud, clanking sounds with each step. Finally! I was getting bored waiting for these humans to show up and start screaming threats. Trade Regent Yillos floated nearby in his bubble suit, his tentacles waving with excitement. My sources say the human fleet is still 3 days away. They must be very confident to send so few ships. Elder Zeph sat quietly in the corner. The ancient being had lived for 2,000 years and seen many wars. His old eyes watched the human ship with worry. Something felt wrong, but he could not say what. The airlock door opened with a quiet whoosh. Ambassador Kaite stepped out first, wearing a simple black suit with no medals or weapons. He was a small man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Behind him came 4 other humans, all dressed the same way. Good morning, respected colleagues, Kite said in perfect galactic standard. His voice was soft and warm. We are deeply honored to meet with such distinguished leaders. Thank you for your patience with our late arrival. Vexthara blinked in surprise. Where were the angry shouts? Where were the demands and threats? Human diplomats usually started fights within 5 minutes of arriving. We have prepared gifts for each delegation, Kite continued, gesturing to his team. A woman with short hair stepped forward carrying a small box. I am pleased to introduce Dr. Jaewon, our cultural specialist. She has studied your magnificent civilizations for many years. Dr. Jaewon bowed politely to each alien group. I hope these small tokens show our respect for your rich histories and traditions. She handed beautifully wrapped packages to each delegation. Vexthara opened hers to find a crystal sculpture of the Zenthari homeworld, carved with incredible detail. Every mountain and ocean was perfect. How did you make this? Vexthara asked, turning the crystal in her hands. Our artists spent many months studying your world's geography, Dr. Jaewon replied with a smile. We wanted to honor the beauty of your home. General Korth ripped open his gift and found a weapon. His eyes lit up with joy until he looked closer. It was not a real weapon, but a perfect model of an ancient Krillian sword, made from some kind of unbreakable metal. This is a Korvac blade, Korth said in amazement. These have not been made for 300 years. We found the old designs in our historical archives, Kite said. We thought you might appreciate seeing your ancestors' craftsmanship. Trade Regent Yillos received a collection of rare spices from across the galaxy, each one perfectly preserved and labeled. Elder Zeph got an ancient book written in his people's oldest language, a text that had been lost for centuries. Where did you find this? Elder Zeph whispered, his old hands shaking as he held the book. Our researchers have been very thorough, Kaite said simply. The gifts were perfect. Too perfect. Each one showed that humans had studied these species deeply, learning their histories, their desires, their secrets, but Kaite presented them as simple acts of friendship. Now then, Kaite said, settling into his chair at the negotiation table. I understand there have been some concerns about shipping routes in the Antares sector. We are very eager to hear your perspectives on this matter. Vexthara sat down across from him, still confused by his politeness. Your people have been attacking our cargo ships. Oh my, Kite said, his eyes wide with concern. That sounds terrible. We certainly want to investigate any misunderstandings immediately. Dr. Jaewon, do we have records of this situation? Dr. Jaewon opened a thick folder. I have detailed reports on every incident in the Antares sector for the past 6 months. Shall I review them now? For the next hour, Dr. Jaewon read through each incident. She knew the name of every Xanthari ship, every cargo manifest, every crew member. She knew which ships had been stopped, which had been searched, and which had been seized. She knew details that even the Xanthari had forgotten. As you can see, Dr. Jaewon said finally, there may have been some confusion about shipping permits and cargo declarations. We are committed to resolving these issues through proper legal channels. Vexithara felt a chill run through her body. The humans had not just attacked random ships. They had carefully chosen which ones to stop, which cargo to take, which crews to question. Every action had been planned. You stole our goods, General Korth shouted, slamming his fist on the table. Kite's smile became even gentler. General, we deeply respect your concerns. However, I believe the term confiscated under treaty violations might be more accurate. We would never steal from our valued neighbors. His voice was so kind, so reasonable, but his words were like ice. He was telling them that humans had the right to take Xanthari ships whenever they wanted. What treaty? Vexithara demanded. The Galactic Commerce Agreement of 2387, Dr. Jaewon said immediately. Section 15, subsection C clearly states that any cargo ship entering disputed space must have proper documentation. The Antares sector became disputed territory when your empire expanded into it without filing the correct paperwork. She placed a stack of legal documents on the table. Each page was marked with official seals and signatures. The paperwork was perfect, legal, and binding. Trade Regent Yilos studied the documents with his mechanical translators. These papers, they make everything you did legal. We always follow proper procedures, Kite said warmly. We would never want to break galactic law. Elder Zeph watched this exchange with growing alarm. He had seen human diplomacy before, but never like this. Usually humans argued loudly and made threats. This gentle politeness was something new, something worse. What do you want? Vexithara asked directly. Kite folded his hands on the table. His smile never wavered. We want peace and cooperation between our peoples. We hope to find a solution that benefits everyone. And if we refuse to cooperate? The human ambassador's smile became even brighter. Oh, I certainly hope it won't come to that. We have such great respect for the Xanthari Empire and its people. We would be very sad to see any complications arise from this situation. His words were perfectly polite, but something in his tone made Vexthara's blood run cold. This was not a threat. Threats were loud and angry. This was something much worse. This was a promise delivered with perfect manners. Dr. Jaewon closed her folders and looked up with bright eyes. I do hope we can schedule more meetings soon. There is so much more we'd like to discuss about our people's futures together. As the first day of negotiations ended, Elder Zeph pulled Vexthara aside in the corridor. Be careful, the old being whispered. I have never seen humans act like this before. They're being polite, Vexthara said, but her voice shook. Exactly, Elder Zeph replied. That's what scares me. Outside the station, 3 more human ships had arrived silently during the talks. They maintained perfect distance, broadcasting only friendly greetings to all who passed. But their weapon systems were powered up, and their crews were ready for anything. Ambassador Kite retired to his quarters that evening and made a single coded transmission to his superiors. Preliminary discussions proceeding as expected. Subjects remain unaware of enhanced protocols. Recommend maintaining current courtesy levels until Phase 2 authorization. In the depths of space, Admiral So-min received the message and smiled. Her fleet of 40 ships continued their approach to Concordia Prime, but they would remain hidden until needed. For now, politeness was weapon enough. The Xanthari had no idea that their fate had already been decided the moment they rejected human friendship the first time. Now Kite and his team would give them every chance to make the right choice, with increasing levels of courtesy and respect. After all, humans were civilized people. They always said please before they destroyed you. 3 weeks had passed since the humans arrived at Concordia Prime. The space station felt different now. Alien crew members walked faster through the hallways. They spoke in whispers and jumped at small sounds. Even the air recycling systems seemed quieter, as if the station itself was holding its breath. Ambassador Kite had grown more polite with each passing day. "Most honored High Counselor Vexithara," he said during the morning session, using a title so formal that even Zenthari nobles rarely heard it. "Your wisdom in these matters continues to inspire our deepest admiration. We are truly grateful for the opportunity to learn from your vast experience." Vexithara's purple skin had turned almost gray with stress. The human's words were beautiful, but they felt like a slow poison. Each compliment made her more afraid. Just call me High Counselor," she said weakly. "Of course, most gracious High Counselor," Kite replied with a bow so deep it belonged in an ancient ceremony. "We would never wish to cause you any discomfort with our humble expressions of respect." Dr. Jaewon sat beside him, taking notes with a smile that never changed. Her pen moved constantly across her papers, recording every word, every gesture, every breath. She had filled 17 notebooks in 3 weeks. "What are you writing?" General Korth asked, his voice rough with worry. "Just cultural observations," Dr. Jaewon said sweetly. "Your people have such fascinating behavioral patterns. Did you know that Krillian males twitch their left antenna exactly 2.3 times per minute when they're stressed? It's quite remarkable." Korth's left antenna twitched. He looked down at it in horror. "And Trade Regent Yillos," Dr. Jaewon continued, "your breathing pattern changes from 12 breaths per minute to 18 when you're thinking about money. Your tentacles also curl clockwise when you're calculating profits." Yillos quickly straightened his tentacles, but it was too late. The human woman had already seen and recorded the movement. A soft chime echoed through the station's speakers. "Attention all personnel," came a gentle voice. "Admiral So Min of the Human Space Navy has arrived to provide ceremonial support for the negotiations. Please welcome our distinguished guests." Through the main viewing window, 12 ships appeared. They were massive, gleaming white vessels that moved with perfect precision. Each ship was 3 times larger than the biggest Zenthari warship. "Ceremonial support?" Vexthara whispered. "Admiral So Min wanted to show her respect for this important gathering," Kite explained with a warm smile. "She brought only a small escort. We wouldn't want to appear aggressive during such peaceful discussions." 12 warships was a small escort? Vexithara felt sick. Admiral So Min entered the negotiation room an hour later. She was a tall woman with silver hair and eyes. Like winter stars, her uniform was simple black fabric with no decorations, but she moved like a predator wearing silk. "Honored delegates," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who commanded fleets. "I apologize for any inconvenience my arrival may have caused. We are simply here to ensure our diplomats have everything they need." She placed a small device on the table. "This is a gift for the station's communication system. It will help reduce those technical problems you've been experiencing." Station Commander Threllax looked confused. "What technical problems?" "Oh, the small delays in your communications," Admiral So Min said kindly. "We've noticed some messages taking longer to reach their destinations. This device should help fix that." Nobody had mentioned communication problems before. But now that she said it, Vexithara realized her messages to the Zenthari homeworld had been taking longer to get through. She had thought it was just normal space interference. Dr. Jaewon opened a new folder. "We've prepared some additional cultural materials for your review. These are studies of successful diplomatic relationships throughout galactic history." The folder was thick with papers. Each document showed examples of species who had formed partnerships with humans. The Altarians had agreed to share their mining rights. The Vegan colonies had opened their trade routes. The Proxima Federation had joined human space for mutual protection. All of them were now under human control. "These partnerships have been very successful," Dr. Jaewon said brightly. "Everyone benefited from working together." Elder Zeph studied the documents with growing alarm. He recognized some of these species. The Altarians had tried to say no to human partnership. Their mining stations had suffered mysterious accidents until they changed their minds. The Vegan colonies had wanted to keep their independence. Then their computer systems had started failing and pirates had attacked their ships. Only human help had saved them. What happened to species who didn't want partnerships? Elder Zeph asked quietly. Dr. Jawan's smile flickered for just a moment. Oh, that's very rare. Most civilized beings recognize the benefits of cooperation. But what if they didn't? Kite leaned forward with gentle concern. Elder Zeph, we would never force anyone to work with us. We believe in free choice for all sentient beings. His words were perfect, but his eyes were cold as deep space. Captain Hyun-soo arrived the next day with a team of technical specialists. They were there to help with station maintenance, he explained politely. His people spread throughout Concordia Prime, checking systems and offering improvements. Your security sensors are very old, Captain Hyun-soo told Station Commander Threllax. We could upgrade them for free. It would make everyone safer. That's very kind, Threllax said nervously. But our systems work fine. Of course they do. Hyun-soo agreed with a smile. This would just be a small improvement. Think of it as a gift between friends. By the end of the week, human technicians had access to every system on the station. They installed new sensors, upgraded communication arrays, and improved the life support systems. Everything worked better than before, too much better. Vexithera realized the humans now controlled the air she breathed, the water she drank, and every message she tried to send home. But they had done it all as favors, gifts from generous friends. We should leave, she whispered to General Korth during a break. Something is very wrong here. We can't leave, Korth replied, his voice hollow. They haven't done anything wrong, they're just being helpful. That was the trap. The humans had been perfectly polite, perfectly legal, perfectly helpful. There was no reason to complain, no excuse to leave, no way to explain the growing fear that squeezed her hearts like a cold fist. Kite found her in the observation deck that evening, looking out at the human fleet. Most gracious High Counselor, he said, using even more formal language than before. I hope you are finding your stay comfortable. Is there anything we can do to improve your experience? Why are you doing this? Vexithera asked desperately. Doing what? Kite's concern seemed genuine. We are simply trying to be good hosts and helpful neighbors. The gifts, the upgrades, the fleet. All expressions of friendship, Kite said warmly. We want you to know how much we value our relationship with the Zenthari Empire. He moved closer, and his voice became even gentler. We have such great hopes for our people's future together. There are so many ways we could help each other. And if we don't want help? Kite was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer than a whisper. We would be very disappointed. We have invested so much time and effort in getting to know you. We have learned about your families, your worlds, your weaknesses. The last word hung in the air like a blade. We know about your daughter studying on the outer colonies, Kite continued in the same gentle tone. Such a bright young woman. We know about General Korth's secret weapon research. Very impressive work. We know about Trade Regent Yillos's gambling debts to the Sarkonian Syndicate. Quite substantial, really. Each fact hit like a physical blow. The humans knew everything. They had spent weeks being polite while gathering information, studying their targets, preparing for whatever came next. What do you want? Vexithara's voice cracked. Kite smiled his beautiful, terrible smile. Just friendship, most honored. High Counselor. Simple cooperation between civilized peoples. We're sure you'll make the right choice when the time comes. He bowed deeply and left her alone with the stars and the human warships that waited in the darkness like patient wolves. In his quarters, Kite sent another coded message. Subjects showing expected stress responses. Recommend proceeding to Phase 3. Enhanced courtesy protocols have been most effective. Admiral So-min received the message and nodded with satisfaction. The Zenthari were almost ready to make their choice. Soon they would understand that. Human politeness was not weakness. It was the sound of a door closing forever. The morning of the 4th week brought news that made High Counselor Vexithara's blood turn to ice. Her aide Kefren rushed into her quarters with a message tablet, his hands shaking. "High Counselor," he whispered, "the Zenthari High Command has rejected all human proposals. They are sending the war fleet." Vexithara closed her eyes. She had tried to warn them, but her messages home had been delayed, altered, or lost in technical difficulties. The Zenthari leaders only saw humans as weak creatures offering bad trade deals. They had no idea what was really happening at Concordia Prime. "How long until the fleet arrives?" she asked. 6 hours, Kefren replied. 300 ships, including the Imperial dreadnought Death's Glory. Ambassador Kite was waiting in the negotiation room when she arrived. His smile was brighter than ever, and his voice carried the warm tones of an old friend delivering wonderful news. "Most esteemed and gracious High Counselor," he said, using titles so elaborate they belonged in ancient ceremonies, "we have received your government's response to our humble proposals. We are deeply grateful for their clarity and decisiveness." "Doctor," J1 looked up from her notebooks with sparkling eyes. "Such a firm and definite answer. We so appreciate leaders who know their own minds." "You're happy that we rejected your offers?" Vexithara asked in confusion. "Oh, absolutely," Kite said with genuine warmth. "Clear communication is the foundation of all successful relationships. We respect your empire's decision completely and wish you nothing but prosperity in all your future endeavors." The words hit Vexithara like a physical blow. Elder Zeph had explained the human warning system to her. When humans wished you well in your future endeavors, it meant they had decided you were going to die. General Korth stomped into the room, his armor clanking with each heavy step. Finally, some honest answers instead of all this polite nonsense. "When do we start fighting?" Kite turned his gentle smile toward the Krillian general. "Oh, my dear General Korth, we would never dream of fighting with such valued colleagues. Violence is so uncivilized, don't you think?" "Then what happens now?" Trade Regent Yillos asked, his tentacles curled with worry. "Now we respect your choices. And prepare for your departure," Dr. J1 said sweetly. "We've already begun making arrangements for your safe journey home." Captain Hyun-Soo entered the room at that moment, his face wearing the same polite smile as all the other humans. "High Counselor, I have some updates about your travel plans." He placed a datapad on the table. "Unfortunately, there seem to be some small technical problems with hyperspace routes back to Zenthari space. Solar storms, debris fields, that sort of thing. Nothing too serious, but it might delay your journey by a few days." Vexithara looked at the data. Every route home was blocked. Every hyperspace lane showed dangerous conditions. The path back to Zenthari space had been completely cut off. "How convenient," Elder Zeph said quietly. "We're so sorry about these natural complications," Kite said with deep concern. "Of course, our ships could provide escort through the dangerous areas. We would be honored to ensure your safe passage." "And if we refuse your escort?" Vexithara asked. Kite's smile became even more radiant. "Oh, we would never force our help on anyone. That would be terribly rude. We simply want you to know that we care deeply about your welfare." Admiral So-min's image appeared on the room's communication screen. She was calling from her flagship, her silver hair perfectly arranged and her expression full of motherly concern. "Honored delegates," she said warmly, "I wanted to personally wish you farewell. Your visit has been such a pleasure for all of us." Behind her, through the ship's viewports, the stars looked wrong. There were too many bright points of light, moving in formation. Vexithara realized she was looking at human warships, hundreds of them spread across the system like a net. "Such a lovely view from here," Admiral So-min continued. "The Zenthari fleet makes such an impressive sight as it approaches. 300 ships, isn't it? Including that magnificent dreadnought. We do so admire fine craftsmanship." General Korth leaned forward with interest. "You can see our fleet? They're still 6 hours away." "Oh yes," Admiral So-min said pleasantly. "We have excellent sensors. We've been tracking their approach for days. Such beautiful ships. It would be terrible if anything happened to them during their journey. The threat was delivered with perfect kindness, wrapped in words of admiration and concern. Admiral Somin was telling them that human forces had been watching the Zenthari fleet, studying its movements, preparing for its arrival. Dr. J1 opened a new folder, thicker than all the others. We've prepared some historical materials. You might find interesting before you leave. These are studies of fleet engagements in this sector over the past 50 years. The documents showed battle after battle, each one carefully analyzed. Ship movements, weapon capabilities, tactical, errors, crew psychology. Every fight that had ever happened near Concordia Prime was documented in perfect detail. We find military history so fascinating, Dr. Jawan said with bright enthusiasm. The way fleets move, the mistakes commanders make when they're angry or scared. Human commanders study these patterns very carefully. Trade Regent Yilos looked through the papers with growing horror. The humans had studied every battle, learned from every mistake, planned for every possibility. The approaching Zenthari fleet was flying into a trap designed by people who had watched every military disaster of the past half-century. "You've been planning this," Vexthara whispered. "Planning what?" Kite asked with innocent confusion. "We're simply history enthusiasts. Knowledge is such a beautiful thing, don't you think?" Captain Hyunsu received a quiet message on his communicator. He listened for a moment, then looked up with pleased surprise. "Wonderful news," he announced. "Some of those technical problems I mentioned earlier have been resolved. It seems several Zenthari cargo ships in nearby systems have been able to resume their journeys." "That's impossible," Vexithara said. "You told us all the hyperspace routes were blocked." "Oh, the military routes are still having difficulties," Hyunsu explained kindly. "But civilian traffic is moving freely again. Isn't that fortunate?" The message was clear. Human forces controlled which ships could move and which could not. They had cut off military reinforcements while allowing civilian vessels to continue their business. The Zenthari warfleet was isolated, trapped between human forces and blocked hyperspace routes. Elder Zeph spoke into the terrible silence. "How long have you been planning this?" Kite looked thoughtful as if considering a pleasant memory. "Oh, planning is such a strong word. We simply like to be prepared for all possibilities. Good neighbors always think ahead, don't they?" "The gifts," Vexithara said suddenly. "The cultural studies, the technical upgrades. You've been preparing for this since the day you arrived." "Since before we arrived," Dr. Jawan corrected gently. "We spent months learning about Zenthari culture, psychology, and military doctrine. We wanted to be good hosts." The communicator crackled with an incoming message. It was Fleet Commander Gorthak of the approaching Zenthari Armada, his voice full of arrogant confidence. "Concordia Prime, this is the Zenthari Imperial Fleet. Surrender the human criminals immediately, or we will take them by force." Kite listened to the message with the patient attention of a teacher hearing a child's recitation. When it ended, he activated the communication system with a gentle touch. "Fleet Commander Gorthak," he said warmly. "Welcome to the Concordia system. We are deeply honored by your presence and impressed by the beauty of your magnificent vessels. Surrender, now human, or face destruction." "Commander," Kite continued in the same loving tone, "we have prepared a comprehensive cultural exchange program for your crews. Dr. Jawan has spent weeks developing materials that we believe will greatly enhance mutual understanding between our peoples." The Zenthari commander's confusion came through clearly in his voice. "What? We're here to destroy you." "Of course you are," Kite agreed pleasantly. "We completely understand your position and respect your right to make that choice. We simply want to ensure you have all the information you need to make the best decisions for your crews and your empire." Admiral Somin's voice joined the conversation, carrying the warm authority of a concerned mother. "Commander Gorthak, we've prepared detailed tactical analyses of this system for your review. We wouldn't want you to encounter any unexpected difficulties during your mission." "We don't want your help." "Naturally," Admiral Somin said kindly. "Independence is such an admirable quality. We're simply offering these materials as a gesture of respect between professional military officers. The data transmission began immediately. Fleet movements, weapon ranges, defensive positions, crew schedules, everything the Zenthari commander needed to know about the human forces waiting for him. It was detailed, accurate, and completely terrifying. The information showed that human ships outnumbered the Zenthari fleet 3-1. Their weapons were more advanced, their positions were perfect, and their commanders had studied every possible Zenthari tactic. Because we believe in informed consent, Kite said gently. We want you to understand exactly what your choices are. We respect your right to choose your own path, even if that path leads to the complete destruction of you. The Zenthari Imperial fleet hung motionless in space, their weapons powered down, their crews waiting for orders that never came. Fleet Commander Gorthak had not responded to any messages since receiving the human tactical analysis. On Concordia, Prime Ambassador Kite continued his daily routine with unchanged politeness. He held morning briefings, shared meals with the alien delegates, and offered helpful suggestions about their travel arrangements. His smile never wavered, his voice never lost its gentle warmth. But everyone could feel the change. The humans had stopped pretending. Most gracious High Counselor, Kite said during breakfast, we've received some concerning reports from Zenthari space. It seems your homeworld is experiencing some technical difficulties. Vexthara's fork froze halfway to her mouth. What kind of difficulties? Dr. Jawan opened her ever-present notebook. Communication satellites going offline, power grid fluctuations, transportation network delays. Nothing too serious, but quite inconvenient. That's impossible, Vexthara whispered. Those systems are completely secure. Oh, we're sure they are, Kite agreed warmly. These problems are probably just coincidences. Space is full of unexpected challenges. Captain Hyun-soo entered the dining area with his usual polite smile. High Counselor, we've prepared an updated report on hyperspace conditions for your review. The datapad showed a map of Zenthari space. Red warning markers covered every major world, every important station, every critical supply route. System after system was marked with the same notation. Experiencing technical difficulties. The problem seemed to be spreading, Captain Hyun-soo observed kindly. We're monitoring the situation carefully and stand ready to offer assistance if needed. Trade Regent Yilos studied the map with growing panic. His tentacles curled and uncurled as he recognized the pattern. Every world that had refused human trade agreements was having problems. Every planet that had supported the war against humanity was going dark. You're doing this, he accused. Doing what? Dr. Jawan asked with genuine curiosity. We're just here for diplomatic talks. The technical problems, the communication, failures. Kite looked hurt by the suggestion. Trade Regent Yilos, we would never interfere with another species' internal affairs. That would be terribly rude. But his eyes were cold as winter stars, and his smile never reached them. Elder Zeph had stopped eating days ago. The ancient being sat quietly in his chair, watching the humans with the horrified fascination of someone witnessing a perfect predator at work. How? He asked simply. How what, honored elder? Kite replied. How are you doing this without firing? A shot? Kite considered the question with the patience of a teacher explaining simple mathematics to a child. Elder Zeph, modern civilization depends on very complex systems. Communications, power, transportation, life support. When those systems work well, nobody thinks about them. But when they fail, he spread his hands in a gesture of innocent helplessness. Of course, we had nothing to do with these unfortunate coincidences, Dr. Jawan added quickly. We've simply studied how these systems work. Academic interest, you understand. For months, Captain Hyun-soo continued, our cultural exchange programs have allowed us to learn so much about Zenthari technology, such generous sharing of knowledge. The truth hit Vexthara like a physical blow. Every gift, every friendly gesture, every helpful suggestion had been reconnaissance. The humans had used their politeness to gain access to Zenthari systems, to study their weaknesses, to plant the seeds of their own destruction. The technicians you sent to help with are computers, she said numbly. Such dedicated workers, Kaite agreed. They wanted to make sure everything functioned perfectly. The communication upgrades on our ships. We hoped to improve efficiency, Dr. J1 said brightly. The cultural exchange students on our worlds. Young people are so curious about other civilizations, Captain Hyunsu added with paternal pride. Every act of friendship had been an invasion. Every gesture of goodwill had been a weapon. The humans had spent years being helpful, generous and kind while slowly taking control of everything the Zenthari Empire needed to survive. A new message arrived from Fleet Commander Gorthak. His voice sounded hollow, defeated. Concordia Prime. This is the Zenthari fleet. We request permission to return home. Kitai activated the communication system with gentle concern. Of course, Commander. We completely understand your desire to return to your families during these difficult times. Our home world, Gorthak's voice cracked. The capital city has been without power for 12 hours. Food distribution has stopped. The hospitals are running on backup systems. How terrible. Admiral Soman's voice joined the conversation, full of motherly sympathy. We would be happy to provide humanitarian assistance. We have medical supplies, emergency power generators, food distribution networks. You caused this. Commander, Kite said sadly, we understand you're upset, but blaming others won't solve your people's problems. We're simply offering to help during this crisis. The trap was perfect. The humans had created the emergency and were now positioned as the only solution. They could restore Zenthari civilization with a word, or let it collapse into chaos. The choice was entirely theirs. What do you want? Gorthak asked, his pride finally broken. We want to help, Kaite said simply. We want to be partners, allies, friends. We want to build a future where tragedies like this never happen again. And in return? Nothing unreasonable, Dr. J1 said kindly. Just some minor adjustments. To trade agreements, some small changes to territorial boundaries, some updates to your government structure to make cooperation easier. She placed a thick document on the table. It was the same agreement they had been discussing for weeks, but now the terms were different. The Zenthari Empire would become a protected partner of humanity. Human advisors would help manage their economy. Human technicians would maintain their infrastructure. Human teachers would educate their children. It was surrender disguised as friendship. You have 6 hours to consider our offer, Admiral Soman said gently. After that, we'll need to begin emergency operations to prevent further humanitarian disasters. The communication ended, leaving the room in heavy silence. General Korth finally spoke, his voice barely a whisper. How long have you been planning this? Kite thought for a moment, as if trying to remember a pleasant vacation. The initial feasibility studies began about 5 years ago. The detailed planning started 3 years ago when your empire first rejected our friendship offers. The implementation phase began 6 months ago. 5 years, Vexithara repeated numbly. We're very thorough, Dr. J1 said proudly. We studied your culture, your psychology, your technology, your weaknesses. We identified key individuals, who could be influenced, critical systems that could be compromised, social pressures that could be exploited. We sent students to your universities, Captain Hyunsu added, tourists to your worlds, researchers to your libraries, technicians to your factories. Everyone was so welcoming, so eager to share their knowledge with friendly humans. You've been at war with us for years, Elder Zeph said quietly, and we never knew it. Oh no, Kite corrected gently. We would never declare war on anyone. War is so messy, so uncivilized. We simply prepared for the possibility that diplomacy might fail. He stood up and smoothed his simple black suit. We always hoped it wouldn't come to this. We genuinely wanted to be friends. But friendship requires trust and cooperation from both sides. Admiral Soman's image appeared on the screen again. Behind her, the human fleet was moving into new positions, surrounding the motionless Zenthari ships like shepherds guiding lost sheep. "Honored delegates," she said warmly, "we've begun humanitarian operations in Zenthari space. Our medical ships are providing emergency care to your hospitals. Our engineers are working to restore power to your cities. Our food distribution networks are feeding your hungry." "Without permission," Vexthara said weakly. "In emergency situations, we believe humanitarian needs override political considerations." Admiral So-Min replied kindly, "We couldn't stand by and watch innocent people suffer while politicians debated proper procedures." More reports flooded in throughout the day. Human relief workers were landing on Zenthari worlds, bringing food, medicine, and technical expertise. They were welcomed as heroes by desperate civilians who didn't understand that their saviors were also their conquerors. By evening, the transformation was complete. The Zenthari Empire had become a human protectorate without a single shot being fired. Their fleet had surrendered without fighting. Their government had collapsed without invasion. Kitai sent his final report to Human Command. Zenthari integration proceeding smoothly. No casualties reported. Population expressing gratitude for humanitarian assistance. Recommend beginning standard civilization improvement protocols. He closed the communication and turned to the alien delegates with his unchanging smile. "Well," he said pleasantly, "I think we've made excellent progress. Shall we discuss the details of our new partnership?" Outside the station, the Zenthari Imperial fleet was already being escorted to human repair facilities. Their weapons would be updated, their systems improved, their crews retrained. Within a year, they would be flying under human command, protecting human interests, believing the Yao. 6 months later, the Concordia Prime conference room looked very different. The walls were decorated with friendship banners from dozens of species. Comfortable chairs surrounded a circular table that symbolized equality among partners. Soft music played in the background, chosen to calm nervous minds. Ambassador Kite stood at the head of the room addressing a class of alien diplomats. His voice was warm and encouraging, like a favorite teacher sharing wisdom with eager students. "The key to successful diplomatic relations," he explained kindly, "is understanding what your counterpart really means when they speak. Every culture has its own way of expressing displeasure, and humans are no different." Elder Zeph sat in the front row taking careful notes. He had become the unofficial translator of human diplomatic language, helping other species understand the warning signs before it was too late. "For example," Kite continued, "when a human says we appreciate your perspective, what do they really mean, Elder Zeph? They think our ideas are stupid but are being polite about it." Elder Zeph replied dutifully. "Excellent. And when we say we'll give your proposal the consideration it deserves? They've already decided to reject it. Very good. Now who can tell me what it means when humans offer unsolicited help?" A nervous Tarlonian delegate raised a tentacle. "It means they want to control our systems?" "Close," Kite said encouragingly. "It means they've already identified weaknesses in our systems and are positioning themselves to exploit them later. The offer of help is just their polite way of gaining access." Dr. Jaewon entered the room carrying her usual stack of notebooks. She had been promoted to Director of Interspecies Understanding, responsible for teaching alien civilizations how to recognize human threat levels. "Good morning, class," she said brightly. "Today we're going to study case histories of successful human partnerships. Please open your textbooks to Chapter 7, The Zenthari Integration Model." The Zenthari integration model had become the standard example taught to all alien diplomats. It showed exactly how humans could conquer an entire civilization without firing a single shot, using nothing but politeness, helpfulness, and careful planning. High Counselor Vexisthara was now listed as a co-author of the textbook. Her purple skin had returned to its normal color, and she seemed healthier than she had in years. The Zenthari people were prospering under human guidance, their economy stronger, their technology more advanced, their society more stable. She just wasn't allowed to make any important decisions anymore. The Zenthari case study demonstrates the importance of long-term planning, Dr. Jaewon explained to the class. Notice how human cultural exchange programs began 5 years before the actual integration. Every gift, every friendship, every act of kindness was carefully calculated. A young Altarian diplomat raised her hand. But the Zenthari people seem happy now. Their standard of living has improved significantly. Oh, absolutely, Kite agreed warmly. We genuinely want our partners to prosper. Happy, healthy populations are much more productive and cause fewer problems. Then what's wrong with human partnership? The Altarian asked. Elder Zeph answered before Kite could respond. There's nothing wrong with it, as long as you don't mind never making your own choices again. The room fell silent. Kite's smile never wavered, but his eyes grew thoughtful. Elder Zeph raises an important point, he said gently. Human partnership does require some adjustments to traditional decision-making processes. We find that centralized coordination prevents many unfortunate conflicts. Minister Da Yun entered the room at that moment, carrying news that made several alien delegates shift nervously in their seats. She had been appointed as the first director of the Human Cultural Appreciation Center, responsible for helping other species understand their place in the new galactic order. Ambassador Kite, she said politely, we've received a communication from the Vorthak Empire. They've rejected our friendship offer and are demanding that we withdraw from their territory. A collective intake of breath filled the room. The Vorthak were known throughout the galaxy as fierce warriors who had never lost a battle. They were aggressive, brutal, and completely uninterested in diplomacy. Kite listened to the news with the patient attention of someone hearing about bad weather in a distant city. How unfortunate, he said mildly. I do hope we can find a way to improve relations with our Vorthak neighbors. They've also sent a war fleet, Minister Daun continued. 1,500 ships, including their new planet-killer weapons. They're demanding that all human forces leave the outer rim within 48 hours. My goodness, Kite said with gentle concern. That does sound serious. He activated the communication system with a soft touch. Please connect me with Admiral Somin. The Admiral's image appeared on the screen. Her silver hair was perfectly arranged as always, and her expression carried the calm confidence of someone who had dealt with similar situations many times before. Admiral, Kite said warmly, we seem to have a small diplomatic challenge with the Vorthak Empire. They're feeling a bit aggressive today. Of course, Ambassador, Admiral Somin replied kindly. How would you like to handle this situation? Well, Kite said thoughtfully, I think we should begin with our standard friendship protocols. Nothing too elaborate, just enough to show proper respect for Vorthak culture. Enhanced Courtesy Level 7? Admiral Somin asked. Let's start with Level 5 and see how they respond, Kite decided. We wouldn't want to overwhelm them with too much politeness right away. The alien students watched this exchange with growing horror. They had learned enough about human diplomatic codes to understand what was being planned. Enhanced Courtesy. Level 5 meant the Vorthak Empire had approximately 72 hours before their civilization began experiencing technical difficulties. What about their war fleet? A Krillian delegate asked nervously. Oh, we'll take very good care of their brave warriors, Admiral Somin said with motherly warmth. We've prepared some educational materials about human defensive capabilities that we think they'll find quite interesting. Dr. Jae-won opened a new folder, already thick with research. We've been studying Vorthak military doctrine for several years now. Such a fascinating warrior culture. We have detailed analyses of their tactics, their weapon systems, their psychological profiles. Several years? Elder Zeph asked quietly. We like to be prepared, Kite explained with his gentle smile. The Vorthak Empire has been hostile to human expansion for quite some time. We always hoped diplomacy would eventually succeed, but we believed in planning for other possibilities. Captain Hyun-soo appeared on another screen, calling from somewhere, in deep space. Ambassador, we've completed our reconnaissance of Vorthak systems. Their infrastructure is quite impressive, but we've identified several key vulnerabilities. Reconnaissance? The Altarian delegate looked confused. But the Vorthak just declared war today. Oh, our scout ships have been observing Vorthak territory. For months, Captain Hyun-soo said casually. Cultural exchange programs, scientific surveys, that sort of thing. The Vorthak were very welcoming to human researchers. The pattern was depressingly familiar. While the Vorthak had been focusing on building weapons and training soldiers, humans had been quietly studying their society, mapping their systems, and identifying their weaknesses. The war had been won, before it was declared. Now then, Kaite said, turning back to his class, let's use this situation as a learning opportunity. Who can predict what will happen to the Vorthak Empire over the next few days? The alien students looked at each other, with sad understanding. They had learned the pattern well. First, their communication systems will start having problems, Elder Zeph said quietly. Very good. And then? Their supply lines will experience delays and failures. Excellent. Continue. Their defensive systems will malfunction at critical moments, a Xanthari student added. Their leadership will receive confusing or contradictory information, another voice said. Their war fleet will find itself outnumbered and outgunned by forces that seem to appear from nowhere. Kite nodded approvingly at each answer. Outstanding work. You've all learned the lesson well. And finally, the room was silent for a long moment. Finally, Elder Zeph spoke the words everyone was thinking. Finally, humans will offer to help solve all these problems, and the Vorthak will be so grateful they'll agree to become partners. Perfect, Kite said with genuine pride. You understand completely. The Vorthak will realize that cooperation is much more pleasant than conflict, and we'll all be able to work together for a better future. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. The communication screen showed a familiar sight. Minister. Dae-Yoon was updating the galactic friendship map. The Vorthak Empire's territory was now marked in yellow, indicating diplomatic contact in progress. How many? Elder Zeph asked quietly. How many what, honored elder? Kite replied. How many civilizations are left that haven't become human partners? Kite considered the question with the patience of someone conducting a pleasant census. Oh, quite a few, he said cheerfully. The galaxy is so wonderfully diverse. There are hundreds of species we haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet. And you'll make friends with all of them? We certainly hope so, Dr. J1 said brightly. Friendship is so much better than conflict, don't you think? Admiral So-Min's